KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, and hometownstation.com. Carl Goldman with you this Thursday morning as we cruise through the morning talking with local candidates from our schools and our water board. Earlier in the month, we had all the city council candidates here. We're not doing debates, we're doing forums and getting a chance for all of you to understand the issues, understand the candidates a little better, because the bottom line is our local candidates, be it the school boards, our water district, our city council, they're more important than any other thing in terms of impacting us here in the Santa Cruz Valley. It's my pleasure right now. We're going to slide over. We finished with water. We're going to slide over. And before we do that, I want to let everyone know that the interview that we're about to do and all the interviews today and the interviews we did with the city council are available to watch on our KHTS Radio Features YouTube channel. Right now we're being broadcast on Facebook Live. I need to have a good hair day, what little is left of it, but so be it on Facebook Live. With me right now is Suverna Mistry. That was a tongueful there. I'm sure you've never had that before, Suverna. But you're running for the Newhall District, and it's a certain area 2, which covers what area?
So trustee area 2 for the Newhall School District is my elementary schools would be Stevenson Ranch, Oak Hills, and Westridge, as well as Meadows. And I also cover part of the entire Summit area as well.
And with all of these forums that we're holding this morning, we've invited all the candidates to participate. We've promised to be fair and right up the middle on this. And for some reason, in this case, your opponent has decided not to participate, but for whatever reason. But why don't we start with the reasons you're running. Why did you decide to run?
Sure. So I just want to correct the pronunciation of my name. It's Suverna Mistry. Sorry, Carl. I decided to run. So I am a mom of 2 children at the Newhall School District. The pandemic was eye-opening for myself and a lot of parents on how little of a voice parents had when it comes to policies that were being handed down from our state level. And so I advocated strongly to reopen our schools when the schools were shut down during the pandemic. I advocated strongly to save youth sports when they were in danger from further restrictions from LA County. And I advocated strongly to restore normalcy for our children and our teachers here in our Santa Clarita Valley. I decided to run because I feel like we need a strong advocate on our board that's going to continue to advocate for our schools and our children and our teachers at the state level.
What's your background?
So I have a JD MBA from DePaul University. I'm from Chicago originally. I practiced law for 12 years in Illinois. I did litigation, commercial litigation and insurance coverage litigation. I also, like as I said, I have my MBA and I'm a small business owner.
And you have 2 kids in the district.
Yes, I have 2 kids currently in the district. I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader at Stevenson Ranch Elementary.
So you witnessed the downtime that they experienced with COVID, and that's been a tough issue for all of us, seeing that the kids have lost themselves academically and certainly lost themselves socially. What, from your vision and having the 2 kids, what did you see happen for your kids and for their friends during COVID?
So I was side by side with my kids during the entire time they were doing the distance learning. Unfortunately, Newhall School District had a ransomware attack at some point, I think within the first month of distance learning, which shut us down, I believe, for maybe 2 weeks or so. And so they weren't even able to access any online curriculum or their teachers at all during that period. So I had to fill in. And a lot of parents had to do the same thing. It was challenging for all of the children, and I saw firsthand how challenging it was for our teachers as well. I know about I think at that time, 70 to 75% by fall of 2020 of our teachers and our parents supported going back to school. But unfortunately, the policies from the state level and the county level prevented us from doing so. And so I saw the struggles firsthand from not only the children, not only my children, but their classmates as well as the teachers. It was a hard time for everybody.
How have your kids adjusted to going back into school?
The very first time my kids stepped back into school, they were elated. They were excited. Their teachers were excited. It was a good time. The energy was great. When they first went back in, was it spring of 21? They were hybrid. So they were going for 2.5 hours, 4 days a week. Which wasn't enough time, obviously. But they were happy, and they have adjusted well. As soon as the next year, the full year started, we had tremendous teachers for both of my kids, for my third grader and my fifth grader, that poured their heart and soul into my children, and that helped them adjust and catch up. And I am forever grateful for their teachers for that.
What do you think are the three most important issues for the Newhall School District?
So I don't think this is anything unique to the Newhall School District, but some of the challenges that are facing public education in the state of California are obviously a decline in enrollment and staffing shortages. And I'm going to put those two hand in hand. With the pandemic and a lot of the policies that were being handed down from the state level, a lot of families and a lot of teachers left public education. And we need to bring those families and those teachers back. Another issue that is pressing is overcoming the pandemic challenges. There's learning loss all across the state, and it affects our district as well as the mental health challenges and the social emotional setbacks that our children face from being out of the classroom for approximately a full year. And then finally, funding. So despite the budget surplus from our state, our schools have a lot of funding issues. There's just too much red tape and state restrictions on how dollars can be spent. We have funds allocated to our district that unfortunately aren't being used where they most pressingly needed because of the restrictions on those funds. So as a school board member and also as a parent and a community member, I want to be a stronger voice and advocate to have more local control over the funding for our schools.
One of the things that surprised me about the Newhall School District that I didn't know was that for two or and maybe three of the schools, they have three languages in there. So all printed material has the English language, the Spanish language, and the Korean language. There's particularly over on the west side in the Stevenson Ranch area, there's a large population of very upscale Koreans who tend to, at this point, still be isolated from the rest of the Santa Clarita Valley. The families have not really spread themselves out into the rest of the valley. They keep to themselves. Have you noticed any different kinds of challenges with the fact that you have a very isolated group?
To be quite honest, I haven't experienced that at all. Stevenson Ranch Elementary, we do have a diverse community. We do have a lot of Korean families, and I feel like they have integrated themselves very well into the school climate and the school community. They are active when it comes to volunteering in the children's classrooms, and they are active in the PTO as well. And I think it's important that we have that inclusion and that they feel that they're part of their school community. And I think they've integrated beautifully into the community.
That's great to hear. That's changed over the years. And as with any group that comes in, it takes a while to diversify into the community. But I'm glad to hear that the Korean population is now taking much more of an active stance out there.
Yeah, they have definitely been active in our school community at Stevenson Ranch Elementary.
We're talking right now here on AM 1220 KHTS. We're going to take a short break and be back with our one candidate, Suverna Mistry. Did I say it?
You said it perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you.
KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220 and your hometownstation.com. Carl Goldman with you, talking with various candidates throughout the morning here locally in Santa Clarita as we get ready for November 8th. Make sure you go out and vote, and make sure you educate yourself. Go take a look at all the interviews we've done on our KHTS YouTube channel, City Council, Water, and also school districts, and really listen to the candidates and go out and make sure your vote counts based on what you believe to be the best choice to make. With me in the studio right now is Suverna Mistry, and I want to just say, said it right the second time, third time?
Suverna.
Suverna.
That's okay.
Suverna.
We'll get
So
there.
I'm one, yes, I'm 1 for 3 so far. But I asked this of the candidates earlier, and there's one school here in the district that has in their school library a book called Life According to Z, which is a book about a 7-year-old girl transitioning to a boy. So my question to you is, do you think that it's appropriate to have that book in the libraries at this point? And should any book be censored?
So our schools in Newhall School District are all elementary schools. So these are starting from TK 4-year-olds up until maybe 11 or 12 to the 6th grade. I don't believe that that book exists at our school. I haven't seen it. I've never read it, so I don't know what's in it. But I can surmise to guess the topic and the graphics. I don't believe that that's a topic that should be introduced at the schools at the elementary level. If that's an issue that comes up with the child, I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed with their parents and navigated through their parents. I am a mom. I have 2 children. I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and if there's an issue that they're facing, I want to be the person that navigates them through that issue. I don't want that to be something that they're first learning about at their school. I think the schools need to be focused on the basic education, reading, writing, math, science, history, all the good stuff. Especially coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of learning loss. We need to focus on education.
Suverna, you talked about the learning loss and COVID. If we had another outbreak of either COVID or something else, another pandemic, would you shut the schools down?
Absolutely not. I have been actively involved from day one on trying to get our schools open when they were shut down. I read all the studies. I followed the science. Unfortunately, our state didn't follow the science. They were bending to the will of their special interest and their in politics, to be quite frank. And as a school board member, I will not support shutting down our schools. We have seen the aftermath of what happened with the schools shut down for so long, and I do not support that at all. And I will fight tooth and nail to make sure our schools never close again.
We've seen right now a shift in our schools with funding at the moment, and here in Santa Cruz, I don't think most people realize that the state funds schools, particularly elementary schools, on a per capita basis. And last time I checked, and it's my stats are very, very dated, but I believe the Newhall district was getting about 16,000 and change per student, as compared to LA Unified, for instance, which gets double that for a lot less education, because I think our Newhall district and all of our elementary schools are pretty stellar. But there's a big difference between funding on a state basis. Is that something you can address, or as a board member, is that something you would fight for?
Sure, I absolutely would fight for more funding at our schools. We have 10 schools at the Newhall School District. 5 are Title I schools, 5 are not. The Title I schools have Title I funding from the federal government and the state government, and the other ones don't. And so I would ensure and I would fight for more funding and more local control. I touched base on this a little bit earlier, where there's dollars that are there that can't be spent where they need to be spent because of how the state and the federal government allocates those dollars. And I think that we need to work better with the state in terms of funding and how we can use those fundings and have more local control on how those dollars are spent.
What do you think is going to happen with the CDC now coming out with COVID vaccine mandates for all kids, and that it now falls to each state? And you know as well as I do that California is going to mandate it probably pretty quickly. It'll, I'm sure, get tied up in the courts. But if it gets down to that, where do you stand with having to be vaccinated, have your kids be vaccinated in order to go to school?
So from all the science that we know about the vaccines, both the benefits and the risks, I support parental choice when it comes to vaccines for the COVID-19 shot. We know the science says, and the CDC admits, the COVID vaccine does not stop transmission. A lot of children have natural immunity from catching COVID. That counts for something. And so I think parents should make that choice for their children of whether or not to vaccinate their children. And I don't think we should use education and hold it over children's heads to force parents into vaccinating their children when they don't think it's the proper and the medically necessary decision for their child.
We formatted these forums to allow each candidate to ask the other one question rather than have a debate. And since your candidate, your opponent decided not to show up, I'm sure your opponent is either listening or will be watching this on Facebook Live or possibly our YouTube channel. So we'll give you the opportunity right now to ask a question to your opponent. If your opponent was sitting here, what would you ask that person?
So I have met my opponent. She's a pleasant young lady. I would ask her what she has done in the last 2.5 years to advocate for children, and especially for the children at the Newhall School District.
This is Carl Goldman. We're going to thank you so much for joining us. It's Suverna, right?
Suverna, you said it perfectly,
guess
Carl. See,
Suverna
I told you we'd
Mistry.
get there at some point.
We got there at the end. And you are listening to your hometown station, KHTS AM 98.1, AM 1220, and your hometownstation.com. We'll be back after this short break with one final group of candidates. And I want to encourage all of you once again, November 8th is just around the corner. It's time to get educated, learn about each of the candidates, learn about the propositions out there, and figure out what you're going to do when you get into the ballot box on November 8th.